We're live. I'm starting. And welcome back to day one of the Digital Transformation Summit presented by Internet and Mobile Association of India and Accenture. As we all know, this event has been aiming to bring together industry experts, thought leaders, and transformation agents from a wide range of sectors to deliberate on technologies that are shaping the transformation of business today. The impact of emerging technology on this business ecosystem and social sectors shall be discussed, while also evaluating the challenges faced in adoption as well as their ideal use cases. This event is expected to be attended by an audience of over 2,000 delegates with 30 sessions in 6 different tracks. We shall be getting participation from industry leaders of brands cutting across banking, finance, telecom, FMCG, health tech, hospitality, e-commerce, retail, to new age technology companies in the domain of SaaS, cloud, intelligent automation, robotics, to name a few. Before beginning the session, I would like to take this opportunity to quickly thank our partners, our title partner Accenture, our track partner Automation Anywhere, our cloud communication partner Route Mobile, and our bronze partner Tata Teleservices. With that, let us now begin with our session. This session is a very special fireside chat on the topic discussing business strategy, embedding emerging tech in retail. And for the same, I would like to welcome our esteemed panelists, our moderator, Mr. Anurag Gupta, Managing Director and Lead, Strategy and Consulting, Accenture India, and Mr. Venu Nair, Customer Care Associate, MD and CEO, Shoppers Stop. We welcome you, sir. I would now request Mr. Gupta to please take over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and morning, everybody. Morning, Mr. Nair. Very good to have you.
Morning.
Very good to have you for this virtual fireside chat, I should say. So we're all in unique times, I would say, very disruptive times when it comes to our business, when it comes to just the humanity aspect of it. We are in a big crisis, So while we sort of continue to grapple with some of these disruptions and challenges. I mean, if I just focus on the business side of it, clearly there is a lot of disruption happening out there. And these disruptions earlier were driven by emergence of new technologies, digital data, as well as newer operating models, a lot of nimble players, startups coming in, leveraging that. So there was already a lot of action happening pre-COVID. In the whole industry, and if I focus on the retail industry specifically as well, and COVID has only exacerbated. So we are seeing changes in customer behavior in many cases, in most cases, forced change in customer behavior, not being able to go and enjoy the shopping experiences in the offline stores, and have to necessarily go online and make their purchases. Now, are they really getting those right experiences or not? Once this pandemic is over, are we sort of going to see customers going back because they always like the touch and feel, they like the shopping experiences? It's an experience that online can't deliver, or there are some newer, obviously, benefits that online offers. So the point being, obviously, there's a lot that's changing out there in the space of retail. One is obviously managing retail operations in such a challenging environment today, but more importantly, also crystal ball gazing to see how this could potentially play out, and are there some steps that retail companies should be taking. So it'll be good to get your perspective. You're a veteran in the whole retail industry. Good to get your perspective, Ms. Nair, about how do you see the future of retail evolving? Do we see this as, and there are obviously different schools of thought. Do we see this as something that largely goes back to how it was a year back? Or are we going to see some permanent shifts in customer behavior? Are we going to see some new winners and losers emerging? So very interested to really get your perspective on this.
Sure. Thanks, Anurag, and good morning, everyone. And thanks to IMI for having me for this session. Really appreciate that. We live in interesting times, and I think it's also at the moment a bit, the second wave has caught, I think fair to say that it has caught pretty much everyone a little bit by surprise by the intensity of it, more than I think it was expected to happen, however, not expected to happen at the pace at which it happened and the speed. So I hope all of you are staying safe. All of you are doing the things that's needed to do in terms of masking, washing your hands, sanitizing, and please take care of yourself. Uh, the impact of what we have seen, and pretty much the COVID starting off in March of 2020, and we had the first wave while we had the lockdown in March and April. The peak didn't really happen till around August, September, and since then the peak subsided, and we saw the opening up of the economy till more recently, 4 weeks back. What's happened, and I'm very confident that this is again a wave. And if you just look at what's happened in the Western world, the UK, Europe, US, it gives a trend. I mean, they had the first wave pretty much like ours. The second wave was much bigger than the first wave, and then it has subsided. And of course, the big difference between the first and the second is that there is the vaccine now. So it is definite that it's not infinite. It's not an infinite issue. It's a finite issue. We know that the vaccine is helping, and the amount of infection or the number of people getting infected after the vaccine is very, very low. So to that extent, it's a question of how quickly the vaccine can be rolled out. And hence, and beyond that, things will start to go back similar to what it has been. However, the length of this pandemic and also the intensity of it has caused a number of shifts to happen in consumer behavior, in the way we do business, and there will be changes because of that. But if I take a step back and just first look at the overall industry, and I'll stick to India for the purpose of this conversation, and uh, looking at consumption, I mean, India has been a consumption story, it has been a growth story. In the last 10 years, 2010 to 2019, the economy has grown, and retail per se, consumption per se has grown at circa 12% in the last 9 to 10 years. Currently, it is 115 trillion rupees is the size, is the consumption, and correlating that to that's pretty much the size of the retail industry today. Uh, Based on the demographics of the country, the GDP growth expected, it is expected that in the next 10 years, the growth will continue at around 10 to 11% and grow to around 360 trillion rupees. Now, the expectation was that would happen by 2030. I think the impact of the pandemic is that that number would be achieved probably with a lag of 1 to 2 years. So overall, the growth will continue, but there would be a time lag in that happening. Why would that growth continue? Why do I think that it will continue? Look at the major factors that drive it. It's affluence, it's urbanization, uh, nuclearization of families, with three-fourths of families now being in nuclear families, and the young Gen I population, which has been the key drivers of growth for the country, and that will continue to be. Uh, those factors remain very, very strong, and hence the overall growth story of India will continue. Growth story continuing, obviously, it's a consumption, and consumption links to retail, which means the retail industry itself will continue to be strong, and the future would look very, very promising. Sectoral impacts in the short term are very, very different. So some sectors have been impacted differently to the others within the retail industry itself. And if I elaborate on that, so the impact on e-commerce has been very good, very high. And what was expected to happen over 5 years has happened in 6 months. And that is here to stay. The impact on essentials, food, grocery, again, move to more staples, move to more basics, and the overall growth has not been as impacted as some of the other areas. Consumer durables and electronics has had moderate growth. Again, within apparel, footwear, accessories, the shift in preferences, and people have moved to more comfort, more casual, more fitness, health, and that's where the movement of consumption has gone to. So there is shifts in pretty much every industry, every sector of the retail industry. And also leading to that is some of the behavioral changes that have happened. Recently in Europe, a survey done, 77% of the people who were surveyed have said that their shopping has changed, their shopping behavior has changed, the way they shop has changed. And half of them said that the change has been good. Now, 77% said changed, and within that, half of them said good. We should not ignore or miss the fact that the other half said it is not good. So I think that's equally important. Uh, the changes, I think a number of changes will remain. If I were to try and elaborate what will change, what will remain, I think it's almost very, very obvious. The growth of online is here to stay and will continue. Brick and mortar will also thrive, and they will thrive because of the fact experience is important, touch and feel is important, and in a country like India, it is also a form of entertainment. More equally importantly, India is very big on social networking, and that is and retail shopping provides an opportunity for that. And we saw that even when we look back in the last 8 months, post August, once the lockdown was eased and as the shops had started to open, every single month the footfalls into the brick and mortar stores continued to grow, even as the online shopping also grew, or at best started to plateau, but it didn't go down. So, and what we need to remember, and this is where retail in India is different to the rest of the world. India is a growth economy, and if we did nothing, it would have been growing at 8 to 10%. So that growth story is continuing or will continue, and that is why both, I mean, online, the growth that it has seen will stay, and brick and mortar will also remain important. The other change will be service. And service, people have got used to having a better service as they were operating from homes. And the expectation of faster delivery, of convenience is set. And that's something that they will continue to expect. In terms of expectations of hygiene, health, safety, wellness, I think again that's something which has got embedded into people's psyche, and especially uh, people who are when they are stepping out of their homes, they will be aware and conscious of that fact, and hence it becomes imperative for retailers to pay attention to that and cater to that. Also, it will provide opportunities from a product point of view to bring in products which would cater to health, fitness, well-being. So I think that's another shift which we are seeing already. Athleisure is one of the biggest categories of growth that we have seen. Again, fitness, gyms, and so on and so forth have taken off when things opened up. So I think that's something which will continue. And underlying all of this is, of course, the increasing investment in technology that will be absolutely essential. And it's already happening. It has got fast tracked, and it will become extremely, extremely important for every single retailer to be doing that.
Interesting. So, I mean, essentially, Venu, what you're saying is the fundamentals of growth are strong for India. It might just be that we'll be behind by a year or two. There is a fundamental growth story for India that remains intact. Just a bit of a delay for a year or two while we grapple with this pandemic. However, there will be some permanent changes that will happen in terms of customer behavior. They will continue to move to online platforms wherever they are seeking convenience. They will obviously seek the shopping experiences, the entertainment, and hence go offline as well. So obviously, even if we see 3 to 5 years back when online was not so big, and now, and with the COVID crisis also coming in, uh, the strategic options and the models for retailers have now evolved because the customer could be following any different sets of journeys, could be starting online and then ultimately making a transaction offline, or vice versa, or it could be more discovery online. There will be online only players, there will be offline only, and there'll be omni-channel players. So do you see, a lot of Will there be new winners and losers who will emerge from this? For example, you made the point on investment in technology. So, those who are really not investing ahead of time in technology, would they end up, let's say, being disadvantaged vis-a-vis those who are sort of going ahead with that?
Uh, I think what has the way the industry has evolved, and if we look fast forward the next 5 to 7 years, there will be. I mean, today we talk of online and brick and mortar as separate channels, and that two separate channels is starting to merge. And over a period of time, there will be only one channel left, and that is omni-channel. And it's important to emphasize on the word omni in this, because even today, a number of retailers call it omni-channel, but actually it's multi-channel, where each channel is treated separately. And the way the customer is today shopping, they expect it to be a completely seamless experience where you could start the journey online and finish offline, or vice versa, or move between these channels seamlessly. And hence, it will be the retailer's job to make sure that they are providing for that journey. And the single biggest shift which is happening in this process is that earlier shopping was very linear. You walk into a shop, you move to you're able to guide where they go in, you are able to show them what you want to show them, and based on that you're able to influence the behavior. Now it is fragmented, and you can't define that journey anymore. It is a very, very fragmented journey. There are over 300 touch points. I mean, even if we were to loosely look at it, so you have to focus on where you want to invest. You can't obviously invest on every single. So you have to be clear where you want to excel, where you want to be good at, where you will be not beaten, and that's where you have to invest. Convenience, which we talked about earlier, and convenience from saving time point of view, whether it is delivery, whether it is one click, and making that journey smooth. And of course experience, and translating that experience, whether it is in the online space or the offline space. And that's something which consumers and customers will continue to expect. That has always been a point of difference, and that will continue to be a point of difference. So that's something that retailers will have to adopt, and the winners and losers will depend on the adoption and being clear as to what you stand for, what you want to focus on, and where you want to, how you want to interact with your customers. The adoption of technology is everywhere. It is not the end all of it, but it is essential. I mean, today for me, it's asking a question as to is technology important is almost like asking, would you like to have bread with your meal? I mean, it's as basic as that, I think. And that shift was already happening well before COVID. The COVID has only accentuated it and made it even more essential for every industry, every retailer to look at it and be clear as to how they want to go about it. Uh, Keeping customers, employees, and all your stakeholders at the center of whatever investment you're making in technology is very, very important. To be clear as to what you want to get out of whatever you're investing into. And there are a number of areas that you could be looking at. And almost, I don't think it's not as if you can make a choice on it. It's a question of prioritizing as to where you want to focus first and where you go later.
In fact, I mean, if I were to just, we've been as Accenture, we've been, over the past 12 months, literally every fortnight, we've been doing consumer surveys across about 40 countries to see the pulse of the consumers, how's that evolving. I think so. I mean, and then we've also then interacting with various CEOs globally to understand, what's their response to that. So one of the things that stand out for us as part of that survey is that 90% of consumers are saying their behaviors will change permanently in some way or the other. As you mentioned, the choices that they make will change. Their channel preferences will change. It's not just a single channel approach, but they will sort of segregate. As a result, I think when we ran this past various CEOs, I think unanimously the one conclusion that CEOs drew was that How this will evolve, how customer behavior will evolve is very difficult to be able to put a finger on today. But what's absolutely essential is that we, as business, as retailers, or for that matter, as even any consumer business, we have to get close to our customers.
Absolutely.
Gone are the days of there being a huge distance between the business and the customer. You have to get close to the customer. You should be able to engage and interact on a 24/7 basis with your customer, understand the likes and dislikes of her, and be able to then adapt your business and operating models accordingly. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's one thing, and that's where the role of I guess data and analytics comes in. So there are now new technologies which are coming in which can help manage lots of terabytes of data. I mean, there is obviously new algorithms using AI/ML coming in. So the role of analytics is also coming. You can actually, instead of a one size fits all campaign, you can actually segment it into many small segments and actually be more relevant to each of those consumer segments. So is that something that you're seeing applicable in a big way in retail as well? And is that something that a retailer should prioritize in terms of their investments? To the point you made, when you're investing in technology, you can't do everything. But is this an area that you would suggest retailers should prioritize?
Yeah, I think in terms of the changed consumer behavior and always keeping customer at the center of what you do. And we talked about omni-channel, and omni-channel has almost is becoming essential for every retailer. The customer journey then becomes very important. And the customer journey now, the ability to map out the customer journey, look at the various journeys, and use data to be able to influence and interact with the customer. Because the other expectation, and we talked of convenience, another illustration of that convenience or a different variant of it is personalization. Today, customer has come to expect that you're talking to him or her on a one-to-one basis, and they're no more interested in broad choices. Saying if you live in Goregaon or Bandra, you're likely to be interested in this set of products. No, that's not interesting anymore. It has to be what is it that you as an individual is likely to buy, and based on your past buying behavior plus the trends that you're seeing, how as a retailer can I give you a recommendation which is very, very uh, personal to you, and that's what will win the game. So that customer journey becomes important in terms of where you want to invest, where you want to spend your time on. uh, Equally, convenience and the speed of delivery, how quickly you can get it. Finally, especially apparel retail, accessories, whether it is beauty, a lot of it is about also instant gratification. So the how quickly that can be done is equally important. And for organizations, productivity, what was foundational has now got to become transformational, because that is what will drive, and making that shift and making that rapidly becomes equally important for every organization and every retailer. Retail per se, and where you're working with consumers or when you're uh, catering to customers and consumers directly, in a way you have got an abundance of data. You've got data in terms of the customer's journey within your environment, whether it is on your app or in the store. You've got data in terms of what they're buying from you. You also get data in terms of what they're looking, where they're spending time. Even in store, you can actually, with technology today, you can see where they're spending the most time, and based on that, you could look at what is it that they're liking, not liking. And there is a larger data in terms of behavioral, what are they doing outside of your environment, whether it is on the web, whether it is which sites they are going to, and so on and so forth. The opportunity is to harness all of this data and put it in a form that can be consumed and acted on, because data on its own means nothing. You can do a lot of analysis, but if it doesn't lead to an action, and hence it is important to start with what are you looking for first, and then map the journey backwards as to, okay, this is what I want to find out, this is what I need to do. And
Yeah.
that becomes very, very important in terms of how you look at data and how you look at analytics. Analytics is absolutely essential and vital. There is no two ways about it. I think, and there is so much more that is available today, whether it is in the form of AI and ML. Retail has been an early adopter, and personalization was always happening, but now personalized recommendation using the browsing behavior based using product searches is becoming far more accurate, and the it can be categorized according to the place in the value chain, whether it is in the front end as in customer experience, whether you use data and analytics in your distribution and supply chain, which is the middle, or you use it at the back end, which is your product development and support functions. And
Yeah.
each of these areas, there are use cases.
No, absolutely. In fact, clearly, as we sort of discussed with various retailers, the extent of emphasis on being able to identify your customers, being able to service them in a more personalized manner has become far more pronounced. I mean, we just have a few minutes left. So I think you brought out an important point about, driving a lot of this transformation. A lot of this is technology-led or digital-led transformation, data-led transformation. And a lot of this change driven by some of these external trends is happening, very quick. You mentioned about, what could have, when it comes to e-commerce, what would have happened over 5 years has actually happened in 6 to 8 months. And that puts a lot of pressure on the organization and the capabilities that you're able to build, and how can you really transform and pivot your organization to understand some of these new capabilities, new technologies, and then being able to realize value out of it. When as we interact with various companies, we find some of them thinking about going big with their digital transformation journeys in a short span of time. Some are taking more measured steps, keeping the fact in mind that their organizations might not be able to pivot as fast. So what would, I mean, it's be interesting to know what's your advice and your experience in that space.
I think it depends on the industry to a large extent, and also on your each individual business and the stage of technology adoption that it is in. Uh, the You could, if you're a smaller company, the ability to make a large leap is probably more because the number of people that you have to bring along is smaller. Whereas for larger organizations across multiple divisions, departments, etc., the change involved becomes that much harder. What is fundamental in all of this is people are at the heart of everything that you do, and they are the ones who have to make this happen. And they are the most valuable asset for any organization. Managing expectations and managing them to make the journey along with you in any transformation that you do is absolutely critical for the success of that transformation. And for that, it's important to firstly, I think, start with the customer benefit, employee benefit of any technical adoption, digital adoption, or any change that is being brought in as to how that will impact and how will that change, how will that make the business more effective, how will make the customer delight a lot more obvious. So that becomes the first part to it. Equally, then training and retraining and carrying people along on that journey is the other part, which is important to make it happen. Because without that, it will never be possible to make these digital transformations or any transformation for that matter. And for retailers, especially brick and mortar retailers, it has a large, the whole footprint of stores is absolutely vital and essential. And making sure that the transformation being made involves and is adopted across its chain in terms of brick and mortar, along with whatever you do on your online app, etc., is essential, and that's the only way it will become truly omni-channel.
Yeah. We are completely out of time, Venu, but thank you so much. I mean, absolutely, fully agree with you. retailers and in fact across industries, transformation is now becoming absolutely essential. But it's important that it becomes a human plus machine led transformation. It is not only a machine led transformation, or it's also not a transformation which only is human led and doesn't tap into some of the newer capabilities and technologies which are coming in. So
Absolutely.
wouldn't
And not to forget the brand and the product at the center of it.
the fundamentals of business don't change. I think the
Absolutely.
fundamentals of the business are foundational, but I think while every business has focused on that, it's also time to look at how you leverage some of these newer capabilities and transform what the transformation that one would have needed over 5 or 10 years and needs to be done in 1 to 2 years. So clearly, I mean, challenging times, exciting times, and businesses will need to sort of look at how they transform. Like you said, work out their own journeys, their own strategies, what fits for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Pleasure talking to you, Venu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Anurag. Pleasure talking to you too. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Thank you, Mr. Nair. Thank you to the audience for such a great session. And we'll be back shortly for yet another exciting session. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Yes, thank you.